Hi, welcome to Math Movies with Ms. Feuer-Beck and Ms. Veluti. Today we will be dividing decimals by decimals. The problems today will not include story problems, they'll just be computations, so we're going to use a lot of estimation and reasoning to get our final answer. Let's start with 88.4 divided by 2.6 equals some number. Now, it's going to be helpful for us to turn this into a multiplication equation as we've been doing. So I'm going to write blank times 2.6 equals 88.4. Now, what I want to do to solve this is I want to think about estimating. So I'm going to start by looking at this number, 88.4, and I'm going to think, what's a number that I could round that to that would be a nice, easy number? And I'm also thinking about this number, 2.6, and I'm thinking, what could I round that to that would be a nice, easy number, where that number would divide into the first one? So I thought about this, and I thought, well, 88.4, that's really close to the number 90. And 2.6, that's really close to the number 3. So if I were to do that, that's a problem that I can solve very easily in my head, and I know that the answer to that is 30. So this is my estimate, okay? Now, when I come to the end of my problem solving, I'm going to need to look back at my estimate to use that as a benchmark to help me get my exact answer. The next step in the process is now I need to divide, I need to take the number 884, I'm removing the decimal point, and I'm going to divide that by 26. So I want to do this in as few steps as possible. I know that 26 times 2 is 52, so let's do 20. Let's start there. That would bring me to 520. So when I subtract, now I have 364. So let's do a group of 10. That will get me 260. And now I'm left with 104. Well, I said earlier I know that two groups of 26 is 52, and I know 52 doubled is 104. So that means that four groups of 26 is actually 104. So when I subtract, I have no remainders. When I add all of these up, this is 34. So I'm taking this number, I'm looking at 34, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, my choices could be 3.4, 34, 340, etc. Now, my smart estimate from earlier was the number 30. So the closest answer is actually 34. So 88.4 divided by 2.6 is 34. Now, it doesn't always mean that when you divide, the answer that you get is going to be your solution. The reason it worked this time was because the decimal points had been moved over the same number of places in the divisor and the dividend, but it doesn't always work like that. Let's try another one and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, here's another example. 9.75 divided by 7.5. All right, in this problem, I'm also going to flip it and turn it into multiplication. So let's take a look at this problem. I could write blank times 7.5 equals 9.75. All right, now I need to do some reasoning and some estimation. So I'm looking at this problem and I'm noticing to myself that this is actually interesting. I know that if I were to do one group of 7.5, that would be just 7.5, which is a little bit too small. It's smaller than 9.75. But let's say I were to go up and do two groups of 7.5. Well, I know 7 doubled is 14, and a half doubled is 1, so 14 plus 1 is 15. All right, well, now that number's too big. It's bigger than 9.75. But what it does teach me is that my estimate means that my answer is going to need to be between 1 and 2. That actually makes sense because if I think about it, if I'm dividing something that's around 10 by something around 8, I'm going to have a little bit more than 1 whole, but less than 2. So let's find the exact answer. We have to divide again, so I'm going to be setting up my partial quotients here, and I'm going to divide 975 divided by 75. So I'm going to start with a group of 10, so that's 750. When I subtract here, I get 225, and let's see, I can do 2 more groups of 75 to get 150. And that will bring me to 75. I can do 1 more group, 75, and then there's 0 remaining. When I add all of these up, my total here is going to be 13. All right, so let's use that number and let's think about my possible options. Well, there's 13 hundredths, there's 1 3/10, there's 13, there's 130. We can go on and on. We said earlier that our smart estimate was going to be between 1 and 2. So when I look at all my choices here, the best possible answer and the correct answer is 1 3/10 because that is between 1 and 2. So that's my final solution here. All right, here's one. The last problem is 21.35 divided by 0.7. Now this one's a little bit different because we're dealing, the second decimal is smaller than 1 whole, so this is a little different than the ones we've done earlier. Now I could try doing some reasoning with this problem. Of course I can always flip my problem around. I can do 0.7, oops, equals 21.35. And what I need to think to myself is, okay, well, let's say I'm rounding this to about 21. And let me think, what can I round 7/10 to? Well, 7/10 is almost 1 whole, so let's say we're rounding it that way. Well, the answer would be 21. So this is my estimate. This is my smart estimate. And later on, when I come back, I need to think my answer should be somewhere close to the ballpark range of 21. So let's divide. And this is a bigger number when I take away the decimal point. So I'm going to have 7, and I'm going to be putting that into 2,135. So I'm going to make a big jump here. I know that 300 groups of 7 is 2,100. So I can subtract that. I'm left with 35, and that's 5 more groups. So in total here, when I add these up, I get 305. So let's think about my possible choices. There's, I could do 305 thousandths. I could do 3 and 5. 30 and 5/10. I could do 305. So I have to look at all my choices here. Now, earlier we said that my estimate was 21. So let's look at the choices and let's figure out which one's closer to 21. Well, 30.5 or 30 and a half is my closest one. So that's going to be our correct answer. I'm going to plug that in right here. So in summary, just remember when you're dividing decimals by decimals, there is a learning curve. It takes practice, but just remember, use estimation, use reasoning, and then use your division strategies and you'll be all set. Thanks so much for listening.